Welcome to the podcast, How to Be a Better Man in 30 Minutes a Week. You join me, Pete Taylor, and my co-host, Benjamin Owen, as we talk real-life tools and coaching on building a family, building significance, and figuring out what it means to be a man who lives with high standards. And if you want to gauge where you're at right now, we have a free Heroic Man assessment at heroicman.com/scorecard. Check it out. See what score you're at now, and then assess yourself on what we talk about on today's episode. Ben, let's get into it.
Welcome to the podcast. In today's podcast, what we're going to be talking about is
how to date a woman and for her to say, wow, I've never met a man like you before.
Cheers, mate. It's all right.
Is that what you get?
Not
or
anymore.
got?
Not, yeah. So actually, no, well worthwhile. And we get a lot of questions. Pete specifically actually gets a lot of questions around this. So this is actually a podcast in response to those who have connected with Pete at Pete_Taylor on Instagram and actually asked him to share a little bit more information on this. So, you know, like we've shared on previous podcasts, if you ask us to cover certain topics, we absolutely will. So what we wanted to do is for those of you guys who are in the dating scene, and also for you ladies, you know, to spot guys that show up like this, because I think not just for men, it's for women to spot conscious men who are really making the effort to operate at a level which you don't often see in the dating market, if you wish. So what we want to do is we walk you through how to really make that impression. Pete, share a little bit about why you want to do this podcast.
Well, number one was that just had a number of guys ask, guys that aren't clients and some of our clients, just when I've like mentioned things in passing about back on the dating scene and like, oh Pete, I'd be really interested to know like your take on that and like how you're approaching it and what you're up to there. And we had it so many times. I was like, okay, right, let's do a podcast on this because I think this could be quite interesting. And for me, going back into dating, I can see how much I have changed from the last time I did this. So I was with my ex-wife for 6 years. So there's been a long period of me not back out in the dating world. And during that period, I have done so much personal development work. So much of it. I've done psychedelics, I've done traumatic work, I've done therapeutic work. I've focused loads on like my own personal growth, raised the standard in like every freaking arena. So now going back out into the dating world, I can see the approach is very, very different.
Yeah, great point. And actually what I'm going to be listening to on this for me personally is where have I lost some of these traits as a man in a relationship? So I think this can be really pertinent for you guys who are in a relationship, and actually a bit of a reminder, where have you dropped out of these behaviors with your partner? Because I'm thinking if I listen to it from that frame, I'm going to get a bit of a, oh Ben, come on, you know, raise your standard here. Because it is, I think this is what happens. So I think it's not just for those of you guys who are in the dating market. I think it's for, you know, all of us guys to go, hang on a second, am I doing that? Am I showing up to my relationship like that? So it's pre-date. So what's going on? Let's go through it. Walk through how you literally frame yourself and create yourself before you even get into the date.
Okay, so before any form of dating starts, know your fucking worth. I don't know, that sounds fucking a little bit cheesy, but it's so right. Because if you don't, no one else will. Like, no one else is going to love you as much as you love yourself. You need to really get into that. So know your fucking worth. Know what you bring to the table. That's so, so important. Because here's the thing. If you focus on that and then you go, do you know what? I don't fucking bring a lot to the table, you know? There's actually not a lot about me. Raise the standard. Go and get fit. Go and get healthy. Like, don't be a fucking slob in that arena. Like, if you don't look good, that's not attractive. It's not. So go and fucking sort it out. Sort your hygiene out. Go and get your teeth sorted. Go and make sure you smell nice. Just sort your general hygiene out. It's surprising how many guys just don't sort that. And that's basic in its fundamentals. And then here's the next thing. Sort your mindset out.
I think just slow down a second, actually. That is the smelling nice. That for me, mine was like I realized that I'd not put a lot of effort into smelling nice because I was just in the gym every day and just getting a decent, just a decent routine around a couple of aftershaves. I think that makes a massive difference for a woman and actually the quality of how you show up in day-to-day life and in general. But just going back to self-love a little bit, can you just speak to that a little bit more? Because I think just instead of just giving the point, go a bit more into that.
For me, I don't call it self-love. I'm more like, it doesn't resonate with me personally, but it's more about self-respect. It's like how much respect do I have for myself, and it starts with putting me first. It starts with doing the necessary things that raises the level of energy and consciousness that I bring into the world.
Well, actually, and remind you of some coaching you did on the hot seat, where you said that you have this, that you'd not go into a relationship with someone who's got another partner. And like we were coaching a guy, and one of the guy's struggles that he had was that he was in a relationship where the other person had. Can you talk to that? Because that was a really profound way that you position self-love. Do you remember? Do you want me to go through it?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you said was have the self-respect. You will not go into a relationship with someone else who is with another partner and you're at their side piece. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember. I remember the guy, and I remember. Yeah, I do remember the conversation. Well, and like ultimately, like if she is doing that to someone else, then there's massive potential that she could do that to you. And it's your standards. It's your standards as a man, and I know that I wouldn't settle for that. Like that's a boundary that is crossed, and so for you to be someone else's side piece, no. Fucking know your worth, know what you bring to the table, and be really fucking confident about that. Because like a man with certainty in his own worth is extremely attractive. Like there's no like neediness there. There's no, because ultimately if you're coming from a place where you're not certain in your ability to provide and to protect and know what you bring to the table, then you'd be coming from a place of scarcity, and that's just not attractive.
Yeah, no, it was just because I think it's because the way you said that is like have the real clear vision of your personal standard, and I think that's the first thing. It's like know what you're not going to accept.
Yeah. Know what you're not going to accept, and be on the path of continued growth. I think that's important for a guy, that he should always want to grow. That it's also attractive to the opposite sex, with the caveat of be open-minded. Don't have a fixed mindset. Is in the no, I know what I fucking bring to the table, and I'm right. Because like there's probably a lot of work that you still need to do, and so you've got to be open-minded to the fact that you won't always be right, and to be like I've had conversations with women where they've raised something, and I'm like, that's a really good point actually, and it's altered my like view on that particular point. And I'm like, there's some more work for me to do. Whereas if I was like closed-minded, like no, I'm right. So have the like your self-worth. You've got self-respect for yourself. You're on a path of continued growth, but you're also open-minded to change.
What about being clear on your wants and needs? I think you've shared about that. What's different about you articulating your wants and needs now versus when you were in your 20s before?
I didn't articulate my wants and needs in my 20s. I didn't even fucking know what they were. And it was like in my 20s, it was just relationship to relationship. She's good looking. We get on. Let's start a relationship. But just not actually being clear on what I personally want from a relationship, and generally what I need from a relationship. And so before you go into any form of dating, just try and get clear on that, and it won't all come at once. Like this is a figuring out game, particularly when you start dating women. It's like, oh, okay, there's actually something that she did there or she said there that in my gut I didn't like, and it wasn't a thing that triggered me necessarily, but it was a thing that I just know that doesn't align with my values, and so that's actually something that I don't want in a relationship or I don't need in a relationship. So that goes on my list. I'll literally create the fucking list, but be clear on that.
Have you articulated like a need to a woman or a want yet, and and how's it gone?
Good, they respect it. It's like, and actually, it's opened up like great dialogue into why, but also theirs. Like and that's also really interesting to get that out onto a table. And I have found that actually most women do know. Like they are able to articulate it very well. Like, oh, this is actually what I want and what I need in a relationship.
Yeah.
Which was interesting to me because it wasn't easy for me to articulate that until I've like done a lot of the work.
I think women are often better than men.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think if you were to say to Poppy, what do you want out of the relationship, she'll say very, very quickly. I think it took a while for me to get there.
Yeah. Okay, so pre-date, you've done some work on yourself. You're clear on that. Then when you are gonna go out with a woman, be freaking organized. Like take the lead on that. I was having a chat with one of our clients last night, and he said that he's like, he's spoken to women, and he's like, I'm so surprised that they do a lot of the organisation. They do a lot of the organising for like arranging dates, and I'm like, what? No, absolutely not. Like, be the man here, take lead, and organise, book it in, and go right. Here's where we're going to meet. This is what we're going to do, and I'm going to pick you up at this time. Be real clear with that. That alone, I think, just sets the frame and sets the tone that you are confident in your ability on going out with a woman.
That's to take the lead. I think a lot of stuff we've covered with masculine and feminine. The masculine is the doer, and then the feminine is the done to. And I think that really paves the way for. And I always like that thing is that a relationship is framed in the way that it starts. So if you show up in that in the first instance, it's going to pave the way for that in the future. So yeah, I love that. So next step.
Okay, so date is organised, right? So you're going to go and pick her up because you're going to be a gentleman. Dress well. Like, and put some fucking effort into what you're going to look like. Don't just throw any old clothes on. Like, look good. And figure out what looks good on you, or get a consultant to come in and just like help you with your clothes, because you do it once and then you know.
Actually, I want to do that. I want to do that. Actually, that's something that a style consultant. Yeah,
well worth it. Just look good, okay? Smell good. Get a haircut. Get a tan if you want. Right, just trim your nails. That's like, just do your hygiene. Just make sure that actually before you go, you're looking good. If you're picking her up, get the car cleaned. Because I think it says a lot if you turn up and you got, your car's not looking, it's dirty and there's shit everywhere inside the car. That says a lot about you as a man being messy. And if you're messy externally, you're likely messy internally. So get all that shit sorted. Plus, you will feel good. And if you feel good, you look good, you're gonna present yourself in a way better way. It's likely you're gonna be more of yourself on a date.
Yeah, I think it's that you're on the front foot. Like being on the back foot, trying to justify and to like, oh, if she gets in the car and it's all, oh, sorry, it's all messy. I've been busy at work. She's gonna be like, he's busy at work. He hasn't got time for things else. Because I think what's actually going on for a lot of women is these micro subconscious decisions or subconscious interpretations of your behavior. So, okay. Got to the point of the date. So now you're turning up at the date. So now you're actually on the date. Here's the mindset that I have. Like, I have no preconceived ideas on a particular outcome. I'm not attached to, this is going to be a one-night stand. This is going to be a casual thing. This is going to be short-term. This could be the fucking woman of my dreams. I'm not attached to that. And I know historically, I'd have been attached to like, this has to lead to something. And like, just like framing it in that way, for me, has meant that I can be extremely present when I'm there with a woman. And not be thinking, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Because like, I'm just framing it as though we're friends, right? We're flirty friends. So that's something that I think about, is that we're friends, but we're gonna flirt a little bit. But there's no preconceived, this has to lead to something. Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna say who it is. Was talking about dating recently, and this was a woman talking about she's gone on some dates, and she said the amount of guys that are they consume with two things. They talk about their past, and they talk about themselves. That's all they talk about. And she's been on a number of dates, and she said that's the two things when she gets into goes on a date with a guy, talks about the past, talks about themselves, no room for me. And I was like, go on, how much percentage do you reckon they ask the questions about you? 5-10%.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is something that I've been complimented on is being very, very present with her. And the good thing about the previous frame of this might not lead to anything. There's no outcome here. You can then put yourself in a frame of, hey, like I'm just with a beautiful woman, and we're gonna have amazing conversation, and it's just like I'm in awe of like who she is and what she's doing with her life, and I'm just interested and curious about that, and I think just that alone will make the room feel like no one else is in it but you and her.
Yeah, I think the distinction there is interested versus interesting.
Yeah. And the interested versus interesting is just what you just said there. Like, ask good questions and ask interesting questions. Like, I'm not... this is the thing about like surface level questions. I think there's a need for both. Because I think it's like you should have we can have the surface level, the normal chit chat, the normal just like chit chat, and there's that free flow chit chat. I think it's good to have that, but get curious, get interested, ask interesting questions, and you don't have to think of them on the spot. Like you could go prepared with like 3 or 4. Hey, I know that I've got some interesting questions to ask, okay, and then. If the conversation goes dry and you're like, I can't think of anything interesting, you've got something prepared to then ask, and then it sparks a good conversation.
Got any questions?
An interesting one is actually to say, look, what's the green flags for you? Like, what do you look for in a man? And then like go through them, and then like she replies with the same question, and then you can have great conversations just on that. Conversation can last an hour or two just on that one question.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, because you go into each answer, it leads into another question and like more conversation.
Next one.
Okay. Here's the thing about getting curious and being interesting and asking deep, meaningful questions. Is it can bring up shit. And when I say shit, I'm not saying it in a bad way, but it can bring up trauma. It can bring up like bad and past experiences that they've been through, maybe some pain that they've been through. I actually want to know about that. Like I am interested in that. I'd rather know about these things now than not, and then I find out much later down the line. I'd like to know about that. But here's the thing about knowing about having those sorts of conversations. Is that you have to be able to hold that space and not feel the need to dive in and coach or advise or anything like that, which is a typical man thing to do, to go and solve a problem. Not to be able to do that, but be able to hold the space and be okay with having those like deeper conversations.
I think what you just shared there, that's a higher level skill. For a man in his, what's the word to describe it? It's his self-awareness and communication ability. That's what I teach coaches, and that's what anyone who wants to be a coach or even a great listener. We actually did an episode like five communication mistakes that kill relationships, and actually what Pete talked about is a big part of what we talked about in that session. It's a really great podcast. Why do you think that's so important?
A couple of reasons. Number one, this is generally what I'm trying to do. And this isn't me being an arse. I am wanting to know what's gone on in their past. and whether that's still really relevant for her, whether that's still affecting her. And to be frank, whether that's something that I'm going to personally have to deal with if I get into a long-term relationship with her. Will that project onto me? Like, is she dealing with that? And I'm not going in there like being an ass, but this is what I'd much rather, is that for the initial like dating period, the honeymoon period, we get into the deep stuff. We get into the stuff that we want to uncover now, rather than just fucking glisten it over and hide all of that and have this fucking great time in the honeymoon period. And then like later on down the line, if like actually there's some traumatic problems that haven't been resolved that then is affecting our relationship. I'd rather uncover it earlier.
Yeah, because I even think now is like, for me, knowing a woman who's done therapeutic work, done work on herself, done some type of like therapeutic intervention with a coach, a mentor, a therapist, I actually find that attractive. I actually find that way, way more helpful than going, oh my gosh, she's got so much unresolved stuff. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like if she's been through some trauma and she's got to go through therapy. I'm not saying that, but as long as like it's like being dealt with, or she's open to like I'm dealing with that and I'm processing that and I'm doing the work there rather than ignoring it.
Yeah, I think like a healthy self-development process for any person. I'm not, you're hitting the nail on the head. I'm not looking for some woman that's like got deep trauma. That's the reason why I'm finding it as like, oh no, if she's got something that she wants to work on, she knows that she can go and do the work, which is great.
Yeah, and the same goes my side. Like I'm willing I want them to ask me the same questions, so I can say, oh, yeah, like these are the things that I've been through, and they've been painful and they've been traumatic. And I'm not all these conversations go this way, by the way. No. You know, the date isn't this like, oh my god, that was fucking, heart wrenching. It's absolutely not. Like the dates that I like to go on, they're deep, but they're funny.
Yeah.
Like there's that mix, is that you're laughing and you're having a great time, but there's also like periods of that where you're having some deep, meaningful conversation. It's fucking just interesting.
Yeah. The next one you like put here is like, don't be a victim to circumstances, and like that's something that going leading on from that conversation. Share about that.
Yeah, just in the way that you are talking, and the way that you're portraying yourself about your life. Like, is the world working for you, or is the world working against you? Because that will come out in your language. It will come out in the way you tell your story. And because I'm telling you, if the world is working against you, two things. That is unattractive to a woman that is high value and is high worth and that knows what she has to offer. It's attractive to the wrong woman. It's attractive to the woman that is also of the same ilk in victim mode and the world is against her. And then you two can be together in your pod. But I'm not about that. Absolutely not. So be careful careful how you approach that.
How do you bring challenge into the date then?
Here's how I bring challenge into a date. And I'm not bringing challenge necessarily, but like if a particular subject comes up that I might not agree on her point of view, I'm not going to pussyfoot around it and just like sit back in my chair and not say anything. I'm also not going to be like confrontational and come at it from an argumentative point of view, but it will be a healthy, like not even a debate, just like a nice conversation around, oh right, that's interesting, you think that way. This is like how I feel about that. And this is why I feel about that. And then it's just like and I'm very open to having my mind changed. And I think that's why it doesn't come across as confrontational, because I'm open to like, her point of view is from a different perspective. I'm open to altering mine.
Yeah, I think the way you put that, I think even just slow down a little bit and give the guys listening the verbiage. So, that's interesting. You think that. I have a slightly different opinion, and this is how I think, and this is why. Instead of you're wrong.
Yeah.
No, that's not that.
I don't agree.
I don't agree. Dismissing the woman, that's like, I don't think that's attractive. And I don't think that, like we put in the podcast, that the woman's not going to go away going, wow, or the man, by the way, you know, actually some of the guys listening to this podcast might be dating other men. But you equally, if you're going into the date like that, dismissing the other person, that's the last thing that I think that, you know, looking at and listening to dating stories from friends is that the last thing you want to feel on a date is put down. You know, I think that's, you know, the deep underlying feeling that you want from a date is that's lifted me up. That's really made me feel good. I feel like I was spring in my step. It should be a great experience. Like it should be a great experience. Like a lot of people have such a negative frame around dating, but it should be a really fun, happy, exciting experience. But gosh, the amount of date horror stories you hear because of, you know, people not being that conscious.
Yeah, and I've said as well, like to be honest and own your own shit. And that's mega important. Like, don't fucking cover shit up. Don't cover shit up. Like, just be honest about everything. Like, fuck it. Why would you not? Don't cover anything up there. And I think that's important. I think that's important for like both parties.
I think that's like the really important one, because if it does lead to anything more, you haven't told. Oh, actually, maybe the really big one is don't tell any lies.
Yeah, white lies or actual lies. Don't fucking tell them.
Exaggerations. I got an ex-girlfriend, and her you know, him went on a date, and the guy told these whoppers about him and his life and his business, and they found out all of it was fraud. It was like a lie.
Yeah.
But it's like, don't over exaggerate. You don't need to puff up. Maybe you haven't put that in here, but that's something that I've definitely always been myself on dates. I never needed to shrink or puff up. I don't need to be the big I am. I just like openly share like what's going on in my life. But I think, especially for guys, that they feel that they need to impress by puffing up, exaggerate, and then what will happen in the next couple of weeks, months, even years is that those stories will be chipped away at.
Yeah.
So don't puff up. Okay.
Next one here. This is during the date. This is really fucking important. Have strong eye contact with her. Have extremely strong eye contact. I'm not fucking, don't stare her out. I'm not staring competition, love. I mean, you could do and it might be a little bit funny, but have strong eye contact and really listen to what she's saying. Get out your fucking head. Listen to what she's saying and pay genuine interest to that. And she will feel that energy. She'll absolutely feel your presence there. And then you are in a way better position to then respond with something that's related to what she's talking about.
Yeah. Let's slow it down a little bit to get out your own head. I think that guys hear that, get out your own head, but like, how do you say get out your own head? Like, what can you actually do to get out your own head?
I mean, this is just how I work, right? Because I do get in my head. Like, I'm not saying that I'm this like perfect guy that's on these dates and I'm fucking, it's 10 out of 10 every time. I'm sure it's fucking 10 out of 10. But I catch myself in my head, right? And I'll be like, Pete, breathe. Because I'm good at my breath work. It's like, breathe, look in her eye, focus on what she's saying. Yeah. That's it. And I'm keeping it very, very simple. If I've got this like crazy 17-step tool, like that's not going to work for me personally, but it is just to breathe. Like, oh, I'm holding my fucking breath there, right? Look into her eye, focus on what she's saying. Okay. And as simple as that. And then this is also what I'm okay with. I'm okay with silence. And I think that's nice. Like, if you're okay with silence, she will also be okay with silence. I'm not saying you're sitting there for 10 minutes, because that is fucking a bit awkward. But like a minute or two whilst, you know, whatever's going on, maybe you just scout in the room, or you just that is okay, as long as you don't feel awkward about that. She won't either.
Yeah, I think one of the more practical ones for guys is don't go on your phone. Get your phone away.
Yes.
I think like if you think about like what Pete's saying there is like, get out your head. If you're like, even like we've talked about this in deep work sessions, is that you have something called task residue. So like, say you're just checking an email or a text while she goes to the toilet, you're still going to be processing that. What do I do next thing? Like you do as a guy. She comes back in, and you're still thinking about, oh my God, I've got to get back to Sheila from accounts. You know, you're still not present with her. You're in your head. So I think that's something like a really small little thing that you got to do is just like give yourself some space. What do you do around space whilst you're on the date?
Oh yeah, good one. Fucking absolutely agree on the phone thing. This goes back to the presence and it feeling like there's just you two in the room. It's like, well, if you've got your phone out at any point and it's buzzing or something's going on that, then that's not effective. I think like you can get your phone out if you wanted to show her something or you wanted to look something up. Like I've done that before, and I think that's quite cool because then it's another part of a conversation. But if you're talking to other people, you're looking on social media, like it's an actual distraction. That's not good. In terms of like space and how you're with someone, this is how I don't like to, if I can get away from it, actually like sit opposite a woman, like we are now, because it's kind of like an interview.
You've been interviewed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I'm interviewing her, she's interviewing me, I just don't like that, the way that's positioned. So what I'd rather is like, I'm sat to her side. So I'm not sat next to her here. If I need to be, then I will be, but I'm just sat on the side, right, at like 90 degrees.
That's good.
Yeah, because then that way it doesn't feel like an interview. It's I think it's just you're just a little bit closer. That's the next thing is because when you're sat opposite someone, it's very hard to go to put a little bit of touch involved. Okay, because I think a little bit of touch is nice when it's appropriate. And if you're opposite someone, it's hard to do that unless you fucking grab their hand or, do you know what I mean? It's very difficult. Whereas when you're next to each other, you can very easily just touch their hand or touch their shoulder if it's appropriate.
big caveat on that one. Okay, then let's move to the last one after post. So you've set up for the date, had a great date, it's gone really well. You know, gone well or maybe not gone great. Like this is the two things. Like, what's next?
Okay, I'm an honest guy. I think you should be honest. If it hasn't gone well, I'm not saying you need to say this face to face with her, but you should like be honest about that. Don't fucking string it along, right? If it has gone well and you like her, tell her face to face. Be confident with that. Like look her in the eye and say, hey, like I've had a great night tonight. I've had a great day today. Like I've had a fantastic time with you. And if you want to see her again, tell her. I'd love to see you again. Like don't fucking play bullshit games. Like I'm too old for that shit. Maybe, you know, back in the day when we were 18 and in your 20s, like you might do that sort of thing, but not now. Like I'm not into games. You know, if she's into games, she's not the right woman for you. You don't need that in your life, right? So tell her you want to see her again. Be real honest about that.
So what do you do? I can't even think of this. What do you say if you don't want to see him again? What would you just like? how do you like? That is actually like trying to think about how do you, because this is something I think a lot of guys have an issue with, is just like being the guy that says no, I'm not interested. They just, instead of getting back to someone saying I'm not interested, they just leave it.
Yes.
Do you get what I mean? It's like communication through no communication.
Yeah.
It's like, oh right, so obviously not interested. How could you? And maybe that you haven't got the answer to this. Maybe this is something that if you're listening in and you want to write to me or Pete and say, how do you say that? How do you say at the end of the date, I'm not interested, but I really enjoyed the date? It's just like.
Yeah, I think like I personally haven't done that face to face.
Yeah, but how do you end the date?
End the day?
Yeah, so at the end of the date, just not say, "Oh, I'll see you, we'll have another date."
Yeah, well, you just say it. If you generally had a great time, then you'd be nice about that. And, yeah, I had a good time with you. I'll message you when I get back to let you know I'm home safe or whatever. And that's that. And then you leave.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back to some of the terrible dates and like, oh yeah, what did I do? But I think I just, back when I was dating, I just didn't say. No communication.
Yeah. And let's just say that you do want to see her again. She wants to see you again. You've had a great time. Organise the next date immediately. Don't fuck around with it. Don't like wait 3 or 4 days and go, oh, I'm busy. Let me check my schedule. And I get it. I'm busy. I got, run a business. I have a son. I'm a big social life. There's things going on. But this is the thing. Like, if you want to see someone, you will find the time. So again, lead in that position and get the time sorted. Do it as soon as possible. Get it booked in.
Final one then afterwards. What's the big one? What makes them go? What makes a date go? Wow, that's a high value man. I really enjoyed that.
Well, I think there's a number of things that make a date go wow.
But specifically after, what's a nice touch that you think makes a big difference?
The thing after is what I've just said. It is literally like being honest about wanting to see them again, and being honest about that. That is nice, particularly if you've done that face to face, because guys don't do that, right? And don't be flaky. Like when in your communication afterwards, don't be flaky. Don't like play games there. Don't like just go, oh, she's messaged me, and do you know what? I'm going to message back in 6 hours' time just because I'll leave her waiting. No, but don't fucking do that. Be consistent with the way that you show up, and that's also the next thing, because this demonstrates how you act and your character as a man. Because if you're flaky there, she'll begin to mistrust you.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, be fucking consistent. And when you say you're going to do something, do it. So I'm like, hey, let's go out again. I've booked it. Boom, and do it.
What do you think is a bigger emotional risk, the first date or the second date? Asking for the second, because I think that the first one is like the emotional risk is quite high, because you're like, yeah, I want to go on a date with you. But I reckon like that second date might carry a bit of a bigger risk.
It does, like, massively, because like now you've met each other and you spent some time with each other. And then for them to then say, no, I don't want to see you again. And like, oh, well, now they know me and they don't want to see me again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's more of an emotional risk on the second one.
So I think that as lead in the relationship, as a man, you actually need to lead that conversation. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think it is fair. It's like, we'll lead the risk. It's like, listen, I've really enjoyed it. I'd like to see you again. Can you make next Thursday at 1? That is. Because that risk in your heart is probably one of the biggest risks. It's so painful. It's so like you have to totally detach from the control there. You have to lead through that point.
One other thing here on sleeping with a woman and how quickly you do that. I think this is entirely up to you. And I don't think there's any problem with like first, second, third date, like you sleep with each other. If like that connection is really, really there. And like, and generally, like if you are a guy that offers a lot, like I know for me, like I wouldn't look differently at a woman that would want to sleep with me really early on, because I generally know that I bring a lot to the table. Right. And I know that that's attractive. However, what I will say is that in my experience with when you sleep with someone, it changes the perspective of the relationship. It changes the dynamic of it. Like the energy is different there. And the risk that you run is that you could not see some of the bad character traits or red flags that could actually be there, and you might cover them up because the sex is good. Yeah. And it's like sweep them under the carpet because, do you know what, the fucking sex was great, so I'm actually, some of those things I'm going to ignore. And because ultimately you're going to find that out later on down the line.
Yeah. I am laughing because I'm like, I can definitely see where that's happened to me in the past.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably happened to most guys.
Yeah. And also, Robert Glover talked about this. It's like a dynamic tension. There is a tension that you create when you don't sleep with each other, and it's fun to play with that tension.
Yes.
And I think that is in itself. I look back at times where I've created that with Poppy, with with previous relationships, and there's been that tension, and you're like, wow. Because when Poppy and I first got together, we didn't sleep together straight away. We really held off for quite a while. And I remember thinking to myself, why the fuck have I done this? It's just like, but the tension was really lovely, and I did get to know her minus the sex, and it was like, and that dynamic tension, it was weeks worth of tension.
Yeah.
And it really was a powerful experience. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
I think it's like, it's fine to have a kiss and whatnot, and that sort of thing. Like if that feels appropriate, and to feel if the energy is there, because I do generally. For me, it's an important thing. It's not just that you have an emotional connection with someone, and you like their personality, and you like what they're about, and their values and their vision kind of is aligned with yours, or it's there or thereabouts. It's like, but also having that intimate connection is really fucking important. Having that physical connection is really, really important.
Yeah, but also I think you can't leave it too long, because if you get really attached and they're terrible, the sex is terrible.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
So, it's got to be a dance between the two, because you might actually get like, oh yeah, this is a great relationship. Then all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, I'm glad we held off because I'm really not into sex. You're like, fuck, I really liked you, but I think that's important. I think because looking at my needs now, I'm actually really, really clear on my sexual needs, and I think that's something that a lot of guys need to make sure they bring into the equation, especially if it's a new partner or second part of your relationship life.
Yeah, and I'm okay with talking about that early, like that these are my like sexual needs, and I'm not saying you talk about it on the first date, or maybe not even the second date, but not like waiting until like way further down the line to go, oh, by the way, I actually quite like doing these sorts of things in a relationship. Like bring it out early, and like have a nice conversation, open conversation about this being like, sex is an experience. It's a journey. Like it's not just a bish bash bosh in and out, who's your daddy sort of thing. It's that, like, actually, particularly for me being, in my 30s, like that experience has now evolved into something that is, it's a journey, not just a one and done. Yeah.
I've really enjoyed talking about this. I think it's been a really great, it's great to hear how conscious you've been around this, buddy, as well. And I'm jealous for the experience of in a great way. But I'm also.
Would you want to come on a date?
Yeah, no, I haven't got it. No, but honestly, for me, I think what I've taken away from it is how I show up to my dating with Poppy. I really think that some of the things that I can enhance my dating. Like we're not having enough frequent dates. We have a few. We've had more than we've had in the last 6 months than a lot of ever. But I can take a lot of these things into my dating with my soon-to-be wife, and I think that's important for me. What have you enjoyed sharing about this? Because actually, I really enjoyed this podcast.
Yeah, I think I could do more on this. I think there's loads more to this. I think we just scratched the surface.
Well, yeah. Guys and ladies, if you've enjoyed the podcast, like reach out to either of us and share your insights. I think it would be helpful.
Yeah. I actually do. Like, go onto our Instagrams and message us and say, oh, that was interesting. I like this, or I didn't like that, or I agree with that, whatever. But also, if there's other questions, because then we'll do more podcasts on it. Yeah,
and I think if you listen to the podcasts that are coming as well, a lot of what we're going to do in the next series of Awaken Man will address, like, if you've got great insights from the podcast, if you can tell us, it will inform what we share in the way that we create the podcast in the next series. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Pete, for that. That was awesome.
Cheers, team. Are you guys on Instagram? If so, give me a follow at Pete_Taylor and give Ben a follow at Coach Benjamin Owen. We put our lives on the stories. There's other content that isn't on our channel or on our podcast. And plus, if there's anything that we talked about that resonated with you or got you a little bit curious, DM us. Let's continue the conversation. Give us a follow, and I'll see you next week on the show.